All right, welcome to State of Tech. We are going to live stream today and talk about these three phones. Should be interesting. I mean, this is an unscheduled live stream, so I'm not exactly sure what to expect here. And I'm not really done with my review yet. I haven't had enough time with the S9 really to give it a full review. I did make it my daily phone for a little while, and I just kept, I don't know, I just wasn't in a place where I felt like just using the phone as my daily phone. I would use it for a day or two, and then I'd end up switching back to the iPhone. I think it really came down to just convenience and whatnot. So I wanted to answer any questions that anybody has about these three phones. I have all three of them here. When I do film my full review of the S9, I will be, of course, talking about the comparison between these other phones. But I thought it would be interesting to do, pardon me, to do a live stream and actually talk about them and see if anybody has any questions. So if you're tuning in, I have the three phones here, and I'll be answering any questions. I should really turn off the screen timeout on all three of these. That's going to get annoying. But anyways, if anybody has any questions about any of these phones, feel free to chime in. I'm going to talk about my experiences so far with them, just so we have something to talk about here in the live stream. And then, of course, I'll have my more concise review after I have a little bit more time to spend with the S9. Now, I got the S9 last Friday on launch day. I ordered it from Best Buy. I don't, get sent phones from Samsung or from any other manufacturer for that matter. So this phone I purchased, and I got it on the release day like anybody else would, and immediately copied over everything from my iPhone to it. I would have copied everything from my Pixel XL, my Pixel 2 XL over to it, but the problem that Samsung has been plagued with is that they don't release their devices with the most common I just got a phone call, so that's weird. They don't release their phones with the most, not common, but the most up-to-date software. So you can't actually do a backup of your Pixel 2 XL over to your Samsung Galaxy S9. It's just not going to work, which is a real bummer because that's kind of the process that I wanted to go to. But nonetheless, I did do the backup from my iPhone 10 over to the Pixel, and over to the S9, and that worked out pretty well. It just took quite a bit longer. It took a good hour and a half to copy everything over because of the hold on, I'm just gonna put my phone here on Do Not Disturb because I don't want another phone call to come through. So the process of copying the iPhone 10 over to the S9 was, kind of time consuming, but it actually worked pretty well. So no complaints there. So the S9, I've really liked Samsung phones since, I've had pretty much every single Galaxy phone that has been made, but the S series, the Galaxy S series phones have really started to become a serious phone for me around the S5, S6 time. S5, S6, the camera started to get really good. Samsung wasn't plagued so much by battery life issues that they were having before, like the phone would actually last a whole day. And so that's kind of when I started taking the phone serious and was actually able to use it as a primary phone. And then, of course, since then, the camera's just gotten better. The displays have always been nice. That's never been a gripe, really, with Samsung. The displays have always been pretty good. But the camera was a real thing for me. I like to use my camera, my phone as a camera as often as possible. It's just super convenient. So, like I said, if anybody has any questions, feel free to chime in the chat. I'm going to do my best to answer those. If there's anything you want to see or anything you want to me to do with any of these devices so that you can see how they compare, feel free to ask. That's kind of the point of this live stream right here is just to play with the phones in an environment where all of you can interact with me, and the fact that I have the phones right here in front of me, especially if you're considering maybe picking up the S9, or maybe you're still considering a Pixel 2, or maybe you're an iPhone person and you're considering jumping ship. This would be a great opportunity to ask any questions. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes, just about some of the things that I do like about the S9. And I have a video that'll be coming out probably later today, if not tomorrow, on kind of my 5 favorite features of the S9, which really aren't really anything new and specific to the S9 itself. It's really just kind of the Samsung experience and the Samsung device in general. So I'll have that video coming out probably later today or tomorrow, and then next week hopefully I'll have my full review out. And then one of the things that we do with the Galaxy devices, every time a new one comes out, we do a whole batch of tutorial videos on how to do specific things with the devices, because there's a lot of people, getting one of these for the first time, and things even as simple as taking a screenshot, sometimes that changes, the process of taking a screenshot changes, or how do you turn off certain features or do something specific. This phone supposedly, and it's all in beta right now, but you're supposed to be able to take your blood pressure. You of course have for a while been able to check your pulse rate, but take your blood pressure with the phone. That's pretty cool. So of course we'll do a tutorial video on how to do that. But some of the things that I really like about this phone, I mean, the camera's great. I have had some issues with it not pulling focus. Pardon me, with it not pulling focus really that well. Typically when I have kids and I'm taking pictures of my kids, I'll just kind of point the camera at them and just shoot a photo. And I'm hoping for the photo to be in focus where, my kid or whatever the main point of interest is, that the camera would know that that's the point of interest and it would focus on it. Now, I haven't had a problem, or I haven't had a noticeable problem with a camera achieving focus on what I want it to achieve focus on in a while, as far as smartphones go. Last couple of iPhones haven't really had a problem with that. The last Pixel version and this Pixel phone, no problem. It's very rare that I ever miss focus or that the camera decides to focus on something else. But the S9 has seemed to focus incorrectly on a couple of things. I mean, there's some photos that I've taken that I just point the camera at the subject and shoot, and then there's an issue. It doesn't actually capture focus correctly. Let me see if there's... Okay, so here's... I don't know if it's going to be... You'll be able to see it too well here. Here's a photo I took of my son. We had just went and got him a new baseball bag for, he's playing baseball. And if I zoom in, he's not completely in focus. The background here, over here, is more in focus than he is. It's kind of hard to tell on this phone when you zoom in, but when you look at this photo on a computer, you could definitely tell that he is not as sharp as other aspects of the image. And so it missed focus on that, and I was really kind of bummed. But then there's other instances, like for example, this photo that I took of my daughter, which is just she'd just gotten out of the swimming pool, absolutely beautiful photo. Like the skin tones, everything is just super nice on it. I like that photo. It was just a beautiful photo. Let me see here. I was just testing the camera at this point, like my grandfather's cat. Just trying to get some pictures and see. I mean, look at the sharpness. I'm zooming in. When it does achieve focus, the images are extremely sharp, extremely detailed. Somebody's car alarm's going off outside. That's awesome. It just worked really well. I mean, great images. Here's my little nephew and I. This is front-facing camera. Front-facing camera on Samsung, I don't know what they do to it. Even if you turn off the kind of skin smoothing feature, it still just doesn't look that good. Like the front-facing camera photos on a Galaxy phone just have never been that great. Even though the camera's good, I know the camera's a good camera. It just, the iPhone and the Pixel XL, just much better photos. So I'm just going to keep talking about some of the features. Keep in mind, if anybody has any questions and you want to chime in on the chat, I've got the chat right up in front of me, and I can see your questions as they come in, and I'll do my best to answer them here. So another thing that I tested out was actually using the phone underwater. I wanted to see how well it did transitioning in and out of water. When Samsung first started making their phones water resistant, that wasn't necessarily like a good experience. Like, you'd pull the phone out of the water and all sorts of things would go sideways. So just to show you, like, this is an underwater image here of my son. I just kind of took this photo underwater. I had to use the volume up button as the shutter trigger, because you can't tap on the screen when the phone's underwater. It just doesn't work. So you can use the volume button to trigger the shutter on the camera. Here's a front-facing one. Wasn't a very sharp image. The camera decided to focus on the front of the inner tube rather than us, which was kind of a bummer. So here's a couple of other photos. Just, we were out swimming. Here's another front-facing photo. Let's see what we've got. So video quality is really good. Let's see what else we've got here. I would say that actually the front-facing video is better looking than the front-facing photos, which is kind of weird. I don't know why that would be the case. Like, the video, you can obviously tell is really good quality, and the front-facing camera photos that I showed you were not really that good looking. Let's see if I could find an underwater one here. Here's an underwater one. What happened with that one is I actually pulled the phone up out of the water, and the water stopped the recording, so it was kind of weird. So camera does a good job. This is indoor. The swimming pool is indoors, and so it was super bright outside the windows, and so this is kind of a good test for the camera. And then, of course, going underwater as well. It really tested the features here of how this camera works or how this phone works going in and out of water. I also did some testing with the iPhone as far as going in and out of water. Let's grab the iPhone and open up some of these images just to kind of show you. Here's the same image of my daughter on the iPhone as what I had taken with the Galaxy S9. I would say the Galaxy S9's photo looked a little bit better than this one. This is a portrait mode photo. This is a slow-mo. I was kind of playing around with slow-mo, I think, here. Let's go look for some underwater shots. I was taking a lot of photos just to try everything out. I wanted to see what I could get, and just as far as comparisons go. Okay. Photos, more photos. Oh, this is also slow motion, I think. Yeah, or that was supposed to be slow motion. Where's the underwater shots? Let me get to them here. Basically, a lot of the same photos. These are some front-facing camera photos. I think that the front-facing photos on the iPhone look better than the Samsung. Still, like I said, I don't really know why the Samsung's front-facing camera does what it does. It just doesn't produce as good a quality of images as it does video, or the iPhone for that matter. Okay, here's an underwater photo. Looks pretty good. I mean, aside from the bubbles, oh, this one's a little better. So it's being asked in the chat, which phone is better? Are you asking about what phone is better overall, or what camera is better? To be a little bit more specific, I'll do my best to answer them. Right now, we're just kind of looking at like the camera photos. I took both the S9 Plus and the iPhone 10, and we were, playing around in the water with the phones, just kind of trying some things out. Let's see here. This one goes underwater. I would say that probably the iPhone and the Samsung kind of tie as far as underwater performance with the cameras. Let's talk a little bit about like the difference between an iPhone and an S9. Like, obviously the iPhone is a different experience. Samsung has done a lot to kind of mimic an iPhone experience, and make things kind of similar, but while keeping unique Samsung features, first and foremost. I will say that I think the speakers are good on both phones. Audio quality is good on both phones. The Samsung seems to have a little bit fuller sound. Obviously, the Samsung is a little bit bigger of a phone, although the screens are not much bigger. So if you actually look at actual screen size here in comparison, there's not much of a difference in screen size. The iPhone has a slightly smaller screen if you don't consider the notch as a loss of screen area. The Samsung screen is only just a little bit larger than the iPhone. However, just because of the curved edges and the larger body overall, the Samsung screen is significantly larger, or it just appears significantly larger. I mean, it is larger. The phone itself is quite larger in comparison to the iPhone, but and that probably makes an account for the audio quality being a little bit better, having a little bit more room for speakers in there. I was testing the audio quality earlier, and though the iPhone and the S9 Plus both have decent audio, the S9 seemed to have a little bit fuller audio. The displays on both phones are fantastic. The Pixel I'm not probably going to talk about as much in this because a lot of times people, kind of want to compare these two phones as opposed to the Pixel. I'll chime in on the Pixel when it makes sense to. The Pixel, I've always been kind of afraid to take underwater because I don't believe that it has the same ratings as the other two phones, and so I haven't taken the Pixel underwater yet, so I haven't tested it in those same situations. Even though I know that it does have water resistance, I mean, there's a seal on the SIM card tray, so I know that the phone can handle it, but I haven't been brave enough to really take it and submerge it underwater yet. So the display and the audio quality on both of these phones are fantastic. I mean, the Pixel has much better audio quality because it does have those dual front-facing stereo speakers. The S9 has a headphone jack. These two phones do not. The screen on all of these phones are, I mean, if you look at the screen, the actual display size of the Pixel and the iPhone, like the iPhone has basically the exact same screen size available as the iPhone. I mean, they're both really close to the same minus the notch. So you're getting more display out of an S9, and if you look at the size of the S9 compared to the Pixel XL, they're essentially the exact same size phone. And yes, I know I have cases on them right now because, well, I'll talk about why I have cases on all of my phones, but the Pixel XL, 2XL, and the S9 Plus are essentially the same exact size phone, but you're going to get a lot more display out of the S9 because of basically less bezels. The Pixel XL, Pixel 2 XL has a pretty good sized bezel all the way around it, compared to a lot of other phones that are out right now. Really quick to talk about cases, like I absolutely have to use a case on my S9. There's no way for me to use the S9 without a case, because I'll hold it in my hand like this, and my hand is always touching the edge of the display, causing things to accidentally be opened, or swipes or gestures. And even though they do have some rejection, some accidental touch rejection built into the software, it's not perfect for a person who has maybe a hand of my size, I guess. Because I'm always kind of holding the phone like this, and some of my hand will always end up touching the phone, or even just in resting your thumb on the phone on the side just to have a firm grip on it, you're always touching the edge of the phone, and that's just naturally how I use the phone. Now, it's also glass front and back, which means it's super smudgy with your fingers are always smudging up the phone, and I hate the back of the phone being smudged up all the time. The other thing is that finding the fingerprint scanner on the back of the phone is kind of a pain in the butt unless you have a case which adds something extra to that edge there so that you can actually get to the fingerprint scanner faster. When I didn't have the case on the phone, I would put my finger down, and I felt like I was always, and it's even the process for setting up the fingerprint scanner is a swipe gesture rather than just tapping the fingerprint scanner. So I had to kind of get used to kind of trying that swipe gesture, but the swipe gesture doesn't really open the phone all the time. I can swipe on the phone, multiple times, or on the fingerprint scanner, and it doesn't necessarily open. But I don't want to be swiping like that all the time anyways, because then I'm swiping over one of my cameras. I'm getting fingerprints all over the camera, and then when I want to go and take a photo, I'm taking a photo through a smudgy camera lens. I want to just get my finger right on the fingerprint scanner and unlock the phone. And without having a case that has kind of a ridge around it so that I could just feel for the ridge and put my finger right there, I'm not going to very easily be able to unlock the phone. Now, the phone does have like a face unlock. It's not like Face ID on the iPhone. It's like previous versions, of the ability to unlock the phone. So I mean, I can hard press on the home button, and then it will unlock. And so I accidentally activated Bixby. And it will unlock, but it's just not as fast. It's not nearly as fast as Face ID on the iPhone. Unlocks really fast, and then it's also not as fast as having just a dedicated button on the back of the Pixel 2 XL. Because the Pixel 2 XL, you've got your fingerprint. I mean, it's just the only circle here, so it's very easy to find. You're not worried about hitting the camera, or maybe your finger's resting on something else. Even if you don't have a case on this phone, on the Pixel 2 XL, it's extremely easy to find that fingerprint reader on the back. So, of course, I have a case on my phone because, like I said, I don't like it to get all smudged up. I like a little bit of protection on my phones, especially since a large portion of most of them are either glass or aluminum that dents up pretty quickly. So, I keep cases on my phone. But the Pixel 2, just because of the location of the fingerprint scanner, means that I could be unlocking my phone as I'm pulling it out of my pocket. So I'm pulling my phone out of my pocket, I just grab the phone. By the time that the phone gets up to my face, or gets up here, it's already unlocked and opened. Very simple. With the Galaxy S9, kind of the same thing. I go to pull the phone up, I've got my finger on the back of the scanner, and it's up and ready to go. With the iPhone, you go and pull up your iPhone, you've got to hold it up in front of you, wait for it to unlock, and then swipe in order to get your screen. And so it's a little bit slower of a process overall if you're going from pocket to actual usage of your phone. The Face ID isn't actually as fast as using a fingerprint scanner, but it really depends on your use case. Most people, when they're doing these tests online, they're like holding the phone in front of them and unlocking it. And it's like, while that makes sense, which one does unlock faster? I'm more interested in the real life use cases where I'm actually, taking the phone out of my pocket and going to use it, grabbing the phone off of the off of my nightstand and unlocking it. Like, what's an actual better experience in those situations? That's what I'm more interested in than, a Face ID type of unlock, unless that was naturally faster. And of course, if you're laying in bed using your phone or something is covering part of your face, Face ID isn't going to work out too well anyways, and neither will the Face Unlock feature of the Samsung phone here. So, Samsung once again this year, managed to, and I've got a theme, or not a theme, but a launcher running here because I like having my app scroll top to bottom. That's the way that I like to access my apps. I don't like having to swipe and then swipe in a different direction. To me, that just takes too much time, and it's not natural. Not natural to me. I want to swipe up and just continue to swipe. Or I have with this launcher configured to where if I press the home button, it actually brings up the app search, and I can do a search for an app right away, which gets me to my apps even faster. Now this is Nova Launcher that I'm using right here. It's not necessarily my favorite launcher. It is definitely getting the job done right now. On my Pixel, pardon me. On my Pixel, I'm actually using Lean Launcher. I really like Lean Launcher, but the problem with Lean Launcher and pretty much all launchers these days is that due to the limitations that Google has enabled with Google Feed, it's very hard unless you install an additional application that you can't download from the Play Store to get your Google Feed. And so, I don't know. I have Google Launcher on the Pixel as well, I believe, or I did at one point. I was going to use Google Launcher instead, the Google Now Launcher. Let's see if I still have it installed. No, it looks like I deleted it. I was just going to go with this launcher. Nova Launcher is pretty good, nonetheless. So I haven't been necessarily using the S9 with its default launcher because I don't really like its default launcher that much. But in order to do my review next week, I will be using it with the default launcher because it doesn't make sense to do a review of a phone and mod it out to the point where it's not as much of a S9 as it once was. So, like I said earlier, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I know the question that's going to get asked is which is better. Of course, across all these phones, people are going to ask me that. I know that Nova Launcher's companion app gives the Google Feed. That's what I was talking about. The app that you had to download. You have to download from an outside of the Play Store because it's not available in the Play Store. And that's for, like, Action Launcher has that, Lean Launcher, Nova Launcher, like all these different launchers have a companion app that you have to download. And that's, fine, but the problem is that it breaks all the time. I've had on Lean Launcher it break a bunch of times. I had the companion app installed on here, but now it's broken. I can't actually get to the Google Feed unless I access the Google Feed in a normal way. I mean, I think this is the Google Feed right here. Yeah, this is the Google Feed right here. But being able to swipe and get to it from the side doesn't work, which should be a feature that you can activate. In Lean Launcher you can, and right now on Lean Launcher, because I need to go and update the companion app, I can't swipe over from the side. It doesn't work. So it's kind of a bummer because I've grown to really like Google Feed. It seems to have a good amount of information for me, and I just like the way that it displays it. The iPhone 10 resolution, I'm not 100% sure what that is off the top of my head. Maybe someone will chime in and share that with us in the chat. The iPhone resolution is not as good as the S9's resolution. The S9 has several different options as far as adjusting your resolution. As the Note 8, I believe, and I think even the S7 or the S8 came with several different resolution options. Those resolution options allowed for kind of battery saving modes, and the S9 comes set in a medium resolution, where it does have a higher resolution that's going to consume more battery life, and then you can have a straight like HD resolution that will be better for battery life. But the middle of the road battery life has worked good. It worked good on my Note 8. It worked good on my S8 when I had an S8. So not too bad. Let's see, what else can I say about the S9? Obviously, it has Samsung Pay. Like, Samsung Pay is fantastic. Hey, thanks for the love on the videos. I'm going to try and do more of these live stream videos. Obviously, I want to try and schedule some out so all of you know what to expect when they're actually going to happen. But I wanted to just kind of do this one right now because it's getting close to the weekend, and I'm not going to be able to get my review out until next week. But thanks for the love on the videos. So Samsung has Samsung Pay, which, I mean, there's tap to pay on all these phones. And if you've never had a Samsung phone that has Samsung Pay, then you haven't really been able to experience why Samsung Pay is way better than Apple Pay and way better than Google Pay. I really like Samsung Pay because you can use it on pretty much any terminal. As long as it isn't one of those terminals where you have to fully stick your card inside of it, it's going to work, even on older terminals that don't have chip readers, that don't have tap to pay or whatnot. And to me, like, if I can't use a mobile payment 95% of the time, I'm probably not going to use it, because I still have to carry my cards on me. I still have to think about getting my card out. But with Samsung Pay, you can use it on pretty much any terminal that's out there, which means not having to rely on your cards, pulling them out of your wallet and all that stuff every time. So Samsung Pay, in my opinion, is much more useful, and it's easier to integrate into my life because I don't have to look at the terminal and think, okay, does that have Apple Pay or Google Pay or whatever it is that I'm carrying? Like, it doesn't matter if it's modern technology or older technology. The Samsung phone, you're going to be able to pay on there. I've only had probably like 1 or 2 instances out of every time that I've used Samsung Pay on an older terminal where it didn't work. And the older terminal looked pretty busted up and had problems reading my actual card anyways. So with that said, like, Samsung Pay is just all around better. I love, you go into like a gas station or something like that, and you go to use, tap your phone, and they're like, oh, we don't have that. And you're just watch, and you tap your phone right on it. It works, and they think that it's some sort of spell that you put on the machine. And they're like, well, it said that it transaction was successful. And I'm like, yeah, I know it was. This is Samsung Pay. It's how the Samsung phone works. It's just a cool feature of the Samsung phone that the other phones don't have. And I don't know exactly how they make it work. I think they use the same technology that's inside of the phone for wireless charging to actually send the magnetic transmission from the phone to the terminal, as opposed to where these are using more of like an NFC technology, because obviously that's the technology that the older terminals don't have, is the NFC technology that the newer phones have. So pretty neat. Just to answer this question, it says off a topic, but which is better, the Razer 14-inch versus the MacBook Touch Bar 13-inch? I mean, those are really tough questions, a tough question to answer. And I want to do more live streams where I talk about, Macs and PCs and laptops and stuff like that, because I'm constantly battling. That's a battle that I'm always in, is Mac versus PC. Right now, it's much more PC. I don't have any Mac computers. I have, an iPhone and an iPad, but I don't have really any computers that are Mac. I've always I've always loved the experience of using a MacBook or a MacBook Pro, but the Razer 14-inch laptop is really nice. I've been kind of considering the new Razer Blade Stealth just as more of a laptop that's lightweight that I can use. I like that gunmetal look. I mean, it's just a nice looking laptop, and probably more my speed as far as the design and the style of the laptop. I just don't like the big bezels around the monitor. So I don't know. I mean, if I had to pick if I had to pick right now, I probably would go with a Razer, just because I don't really have anything else that's Apple, and I'm pretty fully, you know, kitted out with PCs right now. And so, but I'll be honest, if it wasn't the end of the product life cycle on some of the Mac laptops, I might consider purchasing a Mac laptop, just because there's the experience of using a Mac laptop, or using a laptop not because it's Mac, but just because of the way that the laptop's designed. It feels so much better as a laptop when I'm sitting on the couch using it, when I'm, sitting at a table, when I'm at a coffee shop. I mean, it's just a better experience than what I'm currently using, which is a Dell XPS 15. Much more powerful laptop, has a lot better features. Display is beautiful, very small bezels around the outer edge. Just a beautiful looking laptop, but it's big, and it's just not, it just doesn't feel as good. So, I don't know. So which one would I pick out of these three phones if I had to choose? That's a question that's being asked in the chat right now. It's such a hard question to answer. I've been using the iPhone as my daily driver for the last couple of months. I wasn't going to get an iPhone 10. I balked against it, but I needed to try it out for myself, and I've really gotten used to the gesture features of the iPhone. I mean, being able to do everything from swipes, I just absolutely love that. Switching between apps and all of that stuff. I like the swipe gestures. It just makes more sense to me, because you can kind of do it from not quite anywhere on the phone, but there's no, like, I can swipe up to anywhere and access features, and it doesn't have to be as exact as if you're using buttons and stuff like that. I have to really be paying more attention. I found you don't have to be nearly as precise with using the iPhone, even though a lot of these gestures are, really close together, like going into your notifications panel versus getting into your quick actions up here. It's easy to trigger one versus the other. But I've really gotten used to those swipe features of the phone. I've also gotten used to the size of the iPhone. I feel like the size of the iPhone is great in comparison to the actual screen that you're getting. You're getting a lot of screen. You're getting a phone that's smaller and more easy to handle, and I like that. Going back to a bigger phone, like the S9 or the Pixel 2 XL, it's just a much larger phone to carry around with you. It's a lot more to hold on to, especially if I'm going to end up using a case, which, like I described earlier, I typically use a case with my phones, and so it just adds to the bulk even more. Now, when I'm using my phones in another way, for example, when I'm using one of my phones to fly a drone, or I'm taking photos or shooting video or something like that with the phone, I do like having a little bit bigger of a display, because it gives you more to look at. And, when you're playing a game or you're doing anything other than just using your phone in a normal way, it is better to have a little bit bigger of a display. Like, I don't play a whole lot of games on my phones, but when I play them, like, the iPhone does feel a little small. I like watching YouTube videos on a slightly bigger screen and having more to hold on to. When I'm holding on to my iPhone, I'm always covering part of the video somehow. Especially if I'm like laying in bed and I'm watching a video and I'm holding onto my phone, I'm covering up part of the phone with my hand just to hold it. Whereas with these other phones, you do have a little bit more area to hold on to. And I could put a bulkier case on this phone. I understand that. But I could probably, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can modify the way that you hold your phone, but I think the overall experience of just consuming content for me has been a little bit better on the other two devices for a variety of reasons. I mean, for the Pixel, it's because it has better audio quality. It has a decent display that I don't feel gets as bright as the other two phones, but it has a good display, and it has very good speakers. The iPhone has decent speakers, not really the best, but considering the size of the phone, they're not bad. The display's nice, but it's hard to hold onto the phone and not cover up a portion of something without holding your phone in a way that's just not natural, doesn't feel comfortable, or that you're going to worry about dropping your phone. The Samsung phone definitely gives you a little bit more to hold on to. It's a bigger phone. It's a little bit heavier. I don't know necessarily if it's any heavier than the Pixel, but it is. Well, I don't know. Now that I hold them both side by side again, it's hard to say whether or not the iPhone is heavier or lighter. But it just in the form factor, it does give you a little bit more to hold on to, and so consuming content is a little bit easier, I think, on the S9. The cameras are great on all these phones. I feel like they all thrive in different ways. The Pixel still, hands down, just has the best camera. I mean, I know it's not the physical camera itself, but it most definitely is the software that runs the camera that does some really nice things with the photo. As far as processing goes, you know, the iPhone doesn't do that. The S9 does not do that. They both do produce decent quality photos, but the photo that comes out of the Pixel 2 XL is just top notch. I don't think there's any way to get around that. So it's being said, you know, which one, if you had to pick a daily, Pixel, of course, come on. You know what? Like, the Pixel was my daily from, I pre-ordered the Pixel. I got it on the first day that, you know, they were set to arrive. It was definitely my daily. I also had a Note 8 at that time, or bought the Note 8 around that time, and, you know, used the Note 8 a little bit. But the Note 8 just couldn't hang with the Pixel. I absolutely love the Pixel. I also had an iPhone 7 Plus, I think, at that time, or I had an iPhone 7, yeah, 7 Plus, I believe, at that time. And I did buy, when the iPhone 8 came out, an iPhone 8 Plus, just because, I mean, I don't know why. I thought maybe, you know, there'd be something that I would like about it, but there really wasn't. It was the exact same phone as the previous year. But the Pixel was most definitely the phone that I enjoyed using. The reason that I ended up using the iPhone 10 as my daily phone for the last couple of months is for a couple of reasons. Like, the phone is a little smaller. I liked that. I liked the fact that it was much more pocketable. Not that the Pixel XL is huge. I mean, that doesn't seem like much of a difference, but it is a bit of a difference when you're carrying it daily. The phone is smaller and easier to handle, as I was explaining earlier. Another thing that I liked about another thing that I wanted to do initially with the iPhone was just see how bad the notch was, how much it bothered me. But I got so used to using the gestures on the phone that I ended up liking it better than the Pixel. And one thing that I did notice, I've been frustrated for years over the iPhone and the fact that you know, there's no app drawer. All of your apps have to exist either in folders, or you have to swipe between screens and stuff like that. And you can see I've got quite a lot of apps on my phone. However, I found that when I had my apps just in a drawer and I'd have to scroll through them like this, I don't use nearly the amount of apps. I'll end up having a ton of apps installed on my Android phone, and I don't end up using them. Whereas when I have them categorized in these folders, and I know I can do that on Android phones, so, you know, it was just more natural. On the Android phone, I get my minimalist itch scratched. I'm able to be more minimal, which I like, and Android allows me to do that. On the iPhone, it's all about clutter. Everything's right there. There's really no easy way to get rid of it, so you're kind of forced to exist this way. But I do end up using more apps on the iPhone than I end up using on Android, and that's just the way that I use a phone. I have a lot of apps for a lot of different purposes, and I'm always kind of testing and playing with new things. So on Android, I end up having a ton of apps, don't end up using them. So I think going back to the iPhone after not really having used an iPhone much at all in 2017, and even really in 2016, I just, being back on the platform, felt a little new. There isn't much new with iOS, there isn't much new with the iPhone or whatnot, but it just felt kind of new. Now, if I had to choose one phone and I couldn't have any others, if it was all about one phone and, you know, I couldn't have an iPhone and an Android phone, it would hands down be the Pixel. Like, that would be the phone that I would choose. Oh, and another reason is I wanted an Apple Watch, and so I have an Apple Watch, and obviously those two work together. And so even part of me, like I have an Apple Watch, so I have to use the iPhone 10 with that. If I'm using one of my other phones, I can't use I can't use my Apple Watch. So that's another thing, is if I hadn't have gotten an Apple Watch, I probably would have been switching maybe a little bit more. But I like the Apple Watch. It's not necessarily the Apple Watch itself. It's just having a smartwatch that has good features. I do like that. So hey, thanks for hanging out from Vietnam. That's awesome. Yeah, 2 a.m. You should get some sleep. But hey, thanks for hanging out and all that good stuff. So Vinny's asking what I think about the Pixel 3. Will it be all glass? What do I think the Pixel 3 will consist of this year? Like, I'll be honest with you, I'm highly anticipating that, and I'm really frustrated that we're 6 months out probably on something like that. The Pixel 2 is such a fantastic phone, and what Google was able to achieve with a single camera, just what Google was able to do here. And sure, there's things that they could have done better to the Pixel 2, things that they could have offered in the Pixel 2 that they didn't, but nonetheless, it's still a fantastic phone, and it's, putting the hurt on the S9 and the S9 Plus that just came out. And this phone is a few months, more than a few months old. So I think that, if Google is going to want to continue to play in the premium market, they're going to have to match the other phones. I mean, even the iPhone 10 has wireless charging. I mean, come on. That's something that we never thought would come to an iPhone, and it has wireless charging. So the Pixel is going to have to probably go all glass so that they can do wireless charging, unless there's some, change in technology where, they're able to get some wireless charging through something else other than glass. They're going to have to probably go to that. So I would imagine it being an all glass phone, maybe with the exception of the band going around it being, something, which all these phones that are glass, there's a metal band going, the inner frame and everything is made out of some form of metal. So I do think that the Pixel will go that route. I think that they'll still stick to one camera. I don't think that there'll be any reason for them to go to two cameras. I would be really surprised if they did. Back fingerprint scanner, I'm sure they'll probably go with that again, because they seem to be one of the only phone manufacturers that can kind of do it right. I mean, even though there are a lot of other phones with a single button in the back, their button is really responsive. It's multi-purpose. And so I think that they'll probably keep that unless there is some sort of full screen touch unlock functionality or feature that can come to a phone in an affordable way, to where you can just kind of put your finger anywhere on the display and it unlocks. Like, maybe that will happen. They may probably also try and do something with face unlock. I mean, that might be something, especially considering how good Google is with face recognition. If you've messed around with one of those Google Clips, which I have one of those Google Clip cameras that's supposed to use facial recognition to choose when to take photos and all that stuff. Like, Google's really good with facial recognition, so they should probably do something there. Another interesting thing is that Google just bought the camera company Lytro. And Lytro was that company that made that camera with the multi-field focus, and I had one of those Lytro cameras. Not the little, kaleidoscope looking one, but the actual camera looking one. And I thought it was really cool. It wasn't a super usable camera, but I thought it was really cool. And I know that Lytro got out of cameras and they got into, was it VR or something? They got into something else. They got out of the camera market. Oh, they started making big cameras that use that kind of technology instead of like consumer level cameras. So who knows what Google's going to do with that technology? Like, it's obvious that Google's camera is as good as it is because the processing that happens when the photo is taken is being handled through some really cool software tweaks. Google bought Nik software years ago, and they didn't really do anything with the whole Nick suite of software editing. Nick had an HDR plugin that was fantastic. That HDR plugin I use in Photoshop all the time. I mean, it's a fantastic tool, and I guarantee that they took some of that technology and they learned from it to build the software that they're using inside the Pixel 2 XL. And from what I understand, they just open sourced that, so I don't really know what that's going to mean. To me, it means that they already have the next best thing in the process that's better than what it is that they already have. I mean, why open source something unless unless you've already got something better? But I'm excited for what maybe the Pixel 3 will have, but I know that it's also kind of a long wait. Phone years are definitely like dog years, maybe even worse. And I'm guilty, as probably even some of you are, where you don't even own a phone for a full year anymore. I mean, I know I don't. Who knows? I doubt I'll have the iPhone 10 all the way to when the next version of the iPhone comes out. The only reason I still have the Pixel 2 XL is because it's so great. It's a great phone. And to be honest, like, I really don't know what I'm going to do with my Samsung S9 Plus here. I do like the phone. There are several aspects of it that I really do like, but I don't like the fact that it only has 64 gigs of internal. I know that I can run out of that unless I'm hyper vigilant on managing my storage. I do have an micro SD card in it, another 64 gig card, but you can't move every single app over to that card. There's things that you can't do very easily, and I want to have a lot of, I don't know why, but I just like having a lot of available storage space on my phone. And it doesn't make it super easy when you're limited to 64 gigs. I mean, this is the highest, 128 gigs, or the highest version of storage that you can get, and the iPhone highest version of storage that you can get. Even though I don't necessarily need it, I wanted that just because I want to have that buffer just in case, especially because these phones are not expandable. So yeah, Vinny's switching every 6 months. Yeah, exactly. I get your pain, man. Every 6 months. And I wish that I could say I only switched phones every 6 months. That would definitely be a goal that I should have, because, like I said at the beginning of these videos, like, I don't get sent these phones. I have to pay for them. They get expensive, obviously, and so I really have to decide what's important to me before either the return window runs out or before the phone gets old enough that I can't resell it for something. But that's also one of the reasons why I have this channel here and why we produce content. It's because I like smartphones. I like playing around with them. I like experiencing the different features. And if I didn't have something like this YouTube channel where I could create some content and talk about them and share my experiences with everybody, I wouldn't have a reason to buy these phones and spend the money that I do on these phones. So with that said, I think we've probably live streamed long enough here on this topic. Later on today or tomorrow, I will be dropping my kind of my top 5 favorite features of the Galaxy S9 Plus, and so you'll want to make sure and check that out. I'm sure most of you are subscribed to the channel here, but if you're watching this video and you're not yet subscribed to the channel, click on that subscribe button. The little bell next to it, as you know, will notify you when I put out new videos, and we will have a lot of S9 stuff coming soon. My full review video will be a full review of the S9, but then I'm also doing a full camera comparison between these 3 phones, and so you'll want to make sure that you stay tuned for those as well, because like these 3 phones are probably like the main considerations today with what's available. And for most people, it's these 2 phones. For me, these 3 phones are the biggest considerations when trying to decide what phone I would want to own. And I think that that's phones that are being like marketed to the masses. That's also it right there. So let's read the last chats here. Hey, thanks appreciate the kudos on this video. Like I said, I want to do more live chats, these live streams. I really like them because it allows me just to kind of talk and see where things go, and I really like that. Whereas the videos that we put together and we edit and we upload, like, they have to have a structure to them and they have to be more fine-tuned or whatnot. I like having conversations and having people in the chat and being able to talk and answer those questions and stuff. And I think that's like my favorite way to communicate with everybody is through the live stream. So definitely going to be trying to do some stuff where we schedule some live streams. What I need to know and figure out is what the best time of day it is to live stream so that most people would be available. I know we had someone in Vietnam watching. I mean, that's awesome. But it's 2 a.m. and I would want to be sleeping at this point. But anyways, that's going to do it for the live stream for now. I'm definitely working on more live stream ideas and stuff like that in the future. So if any of you have any thoughts or whatnot, after this video is done processing, the comment section will show up and you could actually leave comments. Let me know what you think if you're watching this video later. And then also you can hit us up on social media. We have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff. You can hit us up there and let me know what you think too. East Coast, Vinny, so 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the evening. That's good. I'm in California, so right now it's 12 p.m. It's lunchtime, so perfect time to end a live stream. But it's lunchtime here, so yeah, just trying to figure out when the best time it is to live stream and all of that. But like I said, we've got a lot of Galaxy stuff dropping soon, a lot of videos that stuff that we've already shot and stuff that we still have to shoot over the next week, so make sure to stay tuned for some of that good stuff. But until then, check out some of our other videos here on State of Tech. I'm also going to be posting a lot of stuff to stateoftech.net. Stateoftech.net has been kind of ignored for a while because I've been really focusing on the YouTube channel. But the website itself, I'm doing a lot of work over there, and so there's going to be a lot more interesting and useful things going up on the stateoftech.net website. So I'll be talking about that a little bit at a later time as well. So, hey, thanks a lot, everybody, and moving to USA for school next year in northern side of California. I am in kind of the mid to northern side of California, so that's awesome. Hope to maybe run into you one day. But hey, that's going to do it for the live stream today. Appreciate all of you who hung out. Some of you were here the entire hour, so that's great. And if you want to see more live streams, just let me know what you think in the comment section below, and we will make some more of those happen. Thanks again, and I hope to see you back here soon on State of Tech.